While he's coming up, I'll quickly take his citation. His Excellency Edwin W. Harris Jr., the Director General of Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GIABA, is a financial crime expert with over 20 years of experience in both the public and non-profit sectors, with expertise in governance and policy making, with key technical knowledge and skill in anti-money laundering, countering the finances of terrorists and anti-corruption strategies since August 2022. He has served as the Director General for Since August 2022, I have been serving as Director General for the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GIABA, a specialized agency of the ECOWAS Commission and FATF-styled regional body. He has also supported the global network by serving on the leadership committee, that is the steering group of the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, by advising the president of the FATF on policy matter for onward recommendations to the FATF, the plenary for decision making. In November 2019, he took up the leadership as director for the Liberian Financial Intelligence Unit, where the FIU of Liberia was transformed to a more functional institution that brought reporting entities into compliance and built a culture of cooperation between regulation and the reporting entities. He oversaw and completed and published the country's first national risk assessment on money laundering and terrorist financing. Also drafted and published the country's first anti-money laundering policy and strategies to mitigate the risk identified as approved by the Inter-Ministerial Committee. In his quest to transform the FIU, he drafted and oversaw the enactment of the Financial Intelligence Agency Act of 2022 that created the Financial Agency of Liberia. Also, as director for the FIU, he provided strategic leadership that led to confiscation and conviction of countries' first money laundering case. In May 2022, as president of the FIU Forum of GIABA member state, he provided the strategic leadership that allowed information sharing amongst FIUs in the region. Supported candidates for FIU for the Egmont Group membership and training capacities of the FIUs. In the civil society space, he founded and served as the first national director of the Center Against Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing in Liberia. In 2014, where services of training, mentoring, and policy formulation for key regulators were done with the support of key donors. In 2009 to 2013, he provided strategic leadership as Director of Government Affairs at the General Auditing Commission in Liberia, where he coordinated all activities of the commission with the legislators, the executives, and the judiciary, international organization, the GAC key partners, especially EU. Under his supervision, his colleagues in the region, that is the West African Public Account Committee, was created with initial funding for operations secured from the UNDP. As director, he worked on the Inter-Ministerial and Agency Committee for the drafting and passage of the Public Financial Management Act of 2009. Due to the strategic leadership of his directorate, He ensured that projects and the workings of the GAC was recognized in 2009 by Global Integrity as high-performing institution in Liberia. His contributions to the post-governance in Liberia, making him to join the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs on its USAID Legislative Strengthening Program from 2007 to 2009, provided support to Liberian legislatures in engaging their constituents on their core functions of lawmaking, oversight, and representation. Under this program, he supported the establishment of Legislative Budget Office and the Legislative Information Services directly under his supervision as Senior Program Assistant. Between 2004 to 2007, his efforts saw that the next generation, that is, students, were properly tutored as a lecturer at the University of Liberia in the Department of Public Administration. He holds a master's degree in public administration from the Northeastern University in Boston, USA, a Master of Business Admin from Steyer University in Woodbridge, Virginia, USA, and a Bachelor of Science in Economics from the University of Liberia. He is an esteemed member of both the Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists and the designation of a Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialist, and a member of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and holds the Certified Fraud Examiner designation. As a patriot, he contributed as a volunteer at community levels in providing support to community leadership for youth empowerment, women inclusion, and people with disability, in elevating their voices to the national discourse through provisions of motivational radio programs across the country. I present to you our keynote speaker for today, His Excellency Edward W. Harris, Jr. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for such a wonderful citation. Good morning to all. So I will stay on existing protocol already established since yesterday. Distinguished Chairperson, honorable members of the International Law Association, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues from the bar, ladies and gentlemen, good morning once more to all. It is a profound honor to address this distinguished gathering on the subject central to global governance, security, and justice, the role of international law in combating economic and financial crimes, in shifting global order. I extend on behalf of the GIABA Secretariat our sincere appreciation to the International Law Association Nigerian branch for this invitation. The theme for this year's conference, Mitigating Economic and Financial Crime Risks in Shifting Global Order, the role of international law, is timely and provides a pivotal platform for dialogue, reflection, and collaboration. As the Financial Action Task Force has consistently reminded us, the international community, money laundering remains the lifeblood of organized crime. For emphasis, money laundering is the process by which criminals conceal the origin of illicit funds, typically by bypassing them through a series of transactions or financial instruments until the money appears legitimate and is reintroduced into the economy as though it were earned from lawful activities. Therefore, this powerful reminder from the FATF reinforces why our collective response to economic and financial crimes must be nothing short of strategic, coordinated, and unwavering efforts. It is a call for vigilance, for cooperation, and for sustained commitment required to protect the integrity of our financial system and the security of our society. It is often said, it is always a pleasure to speak before lawyers because, unlike doctors, when lawyers give you a prescription, you are not required to swallow it, You only need to sack it. Beyond this humor, I underscore the indispensable role of the legal profession in shaping the norms and precedent that guide global responses to economic and financial crimes. Your role is therefore not only intellectual, but foundational in the fight we are here to describe. I read that again. Your role is therefore not only intellectual, but foundational to the fight we are here to discuss. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, economic and financial crimes, including money laundering, terrorist financing, corruption, tax evasion, and illicit financial flows, pose profound threats to global stability. They weaken institutions, distort markets, erode public trust, deprive state of resources essential for development. As technology and global finance evolve, criminal networks adapt rapidly, transcending borders and exploiting regulatory gaps. In this context, international law must serve both as a shield and a sword. A shield that protects the financial system and enhances security, a sword that enables states to uncover and protect, a sword that enables the states to uncover and disrupt criminal networks that thrive on our resources with impunity. The rise of digital assets and cyber-enabled crimes demands a strong and harmonized and forward-looking legal and institutional framework. Global instruments such as the FATF standards, the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, key ECOWAS mechanisms provide strong foundation, but their effectiveness depends on consistent and faithful domestication and implementation. GIABA calls mandate to translate global standards into effective regional action. We conduct mutual evaluation to assess member states' compliance with FATF standards, strengthen capacity to address identified risks, support legislative and regulatory reform. We also coordinate targeted technical assistance and foster cross-border cooperation to ensure no states become a haven for criminals. However, the ultimate impact of these efforts depends on the political will of our member states and to strengthen their institutions. In effect, international law provides the compacts, but political will determines the direction we take. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to highlight some of the concrete achievements that demonstrate the impact GIABA work across the region. First, GIABA has spearheaded transformative legal reforms in member states through the successful completion of the second round of mutual evaluation. This evaluation led to strengthening the MSCFT for clarity, anti-money laundering, and countering finance terrorism frameworks, the adoption of updated normal national laws on money laundering and terrorist financing, and the establishment of clearer procedures for international cooperation. Second, all ECOWAS countries now have dedicated financial intelligence units, a significant institutional achievement. Through sustained GIABA support, many of these FIU have joined the EMO group, granting access to secure global information exchange platforms that enhances their ability to trace illicit financial flows and support cross-border investigation. Third, GIABA technical assistance and capacity building programs have yielded tangible and operational results. Member states have recorded increases in the number of investigations, prosecution, and asset recovery actions. Several countries have also enhanced their risk assessment capabilities, enabling more targeted supervision and enforcement. Another important achievement for the region has been steady progress of GIABA member states under the FATF International Cooperation Review Group, commonly known as the Grey List. Over the past few years, several of our countries have successfully exited the FATF Grey List after implementing sustained reform and demonstrating stronger compliance with MSCFC standards. For example, in June 2021, Ghana exited, followed by Senegal in October 2024. Mali also exited in June 2025. Both the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Burkina Faso exited October 2025. With potential of the exit of La Côte d'Ivoire in June 2026. At the global level, JABA continues to be recognized for its leadership within the FATA network. We actively contribute to typology studies, policy shifting dialogue, and peer review processes, ensuring that West Africa's voice is represented in global debates on financial integrity. JABA also maintains close partnership with the United Nations, the World Bank, IMF, UNDCO, and the African Development Bank, and other international bodies helping to align regional efforts with global standards and best practices. These achievements underscore a clear truth. With strategic coordination, political will, and international cooperation, our region can build resilient systems capable of confronting the evolving threats of economic and financial crimes. Looking ahead, our collective task is to close the normative and operational gaps that criminal networks increasingly exploit. This requires responsive legal system, real-time information sharing, joint investigation, effective extradition arrangement, and robust asset recovery mechanism. Transnational threats demand transnational solutions. This conference is therefore timely. It brings together legal practitioners, scholars, policymakers, and institutions to reflect on emerging risks and to strengthen the legal and institutional tools needed to enhance accountability and resilience. It reaffirms not only the relevance of international law association, but also the indispensable role of JIABA as regional and global stakeholder in shaping innovative responses to financial crime. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we consolidate these achievements, we also recognize the critical role of international law association in shaping the global legal architecture that underpins our work. JIABA views its relationship with the ILA as both strategic and a catalyst in advancing coherent and effective anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism framework across West Africa. The ILA unique strength lies in its ability to bring together eminent jurists, academics, and practitioners whose scholarship and legal interpretation influence national reform, judicial reasoning, and evolution of international law. As JIABA continues to support member states in implementing the FATF standards and strengthening domestic legal systems, the expertise of ILA offers an invaluable platform for deepening legal harmonization, clarifying procedural inconsistencies, support model legislative reform in areas such as mutual legal assistance, assets recovery, beneficiary ownership transparency, and cross-border cooperation. Going forward, we envision a stronger partnership with the ILA in three strategic areas. First, joint research and policy dialogue on emerging threats, including virtual assets, cyber-enabled financial crimes, illicit financial flows. Second, collaboration on capacity building initiatives, particularly for judges, prosecutors, financial sector regulators, and other legal professionals whose decisions shape the integrity of our financial system. Third, co-creation of legal tools and best practices guide that can support member states in aligning their national framework with global norms while addressing regional specifics. Through this partnership, JIABA stands ready to support the ILA with data, typologies, comparative research, and regional insight drawn from our mutual evaluations, capacity building programs, and technical assistance missions. In return, ILA can provide the scholarly rigor, doctrinal clarity, legal innovation required to elevate our region's contribution to the global anti-money laundering, countering the financial terrorism discourse. Together, we can reinforce the legal foundation essential for building resilient institutions, strengthening accountability, and safeguarding the rule of law in West Africa. Africa and West Africa in particular must increasingly position itself not only as a recipient of global norms, but as contributor to the standard that shape global financial integrity. Our region faces significant challenges, yet we possess the expertise and resilience necessary to influence global solutions. JIABA stands at the forefront of this effort, championing regional initiatives and supporting member states to build strong and accountable systems. Ladies and gentlemen, the rule of law is not abstraction. It is a lived reality that determines whether citizens trust their institution, whether communities feel secure, whether states can safeguard their resources and deliver development. When faithfully applied, international law transforms obligation into tangible justice, aspiration into meaningful protection, and principle into measurable progress. In confronting economic and financial crimes, we are not merely enforcing compliance, we are preserving our sovereignty, strengthening governance, and safeguarding the future of our region. In recent years, the financial integrity landscape has undergone rapid and unprecedented shifts. The FATF increased focus on beneficiary ownership transparency and the growing scrutiny of virtual asset service providers have reshaped compliance expectations across all jurisdictions. At the same time, West Africa has experienced a surge in technology-enabled financial services, which has brought both new opportunities and heightened risks. Several member states have faced complex cases involving cyber fraud network, cross-border mobile money laundering, virtual assets misuse, demonstrating how criminals actors are adapting faster than traditional regulatory framework. These developments underscore why international legal cooperation, harmonized standards, and informed jurisprudence are indispensable to our collective security. Criminals misuse virtual asset service providers to move illicit funds quickly across borders, often through poorly regulated exchange or offshore platforms that may be difficult to trace transactions. FATF June 2025 targeted update on VAPs for clarity. Virtual asset service providers show that many jurisprudence or jurisdictions still struggle to identify who is conducting VAPs activity, supervise high-risk platforms, or fully implement the travel rule, which require key customer information to accompany transaction. The FATF highlight the unprecedented US $1.5 billion Bybit hack attributed to North Korea Link network as a stark reminder of the transnational nature of cyber-enabled financial crimes. The update followed noted a surge in global illicit on-chain activity, over $50 billion in 2024, driven largely by sophisticated fraud schemes and criminal misuse took place. These gaps, combined with rising cyber-enabled fraud and the rapid expansion of digital financial services in West Africa, highlight why strong risk assessment, coordinated supervision, and harmonized legal framework are now essential in protecting our financial system. A recent FATF report on understanding and mitigating risks of offshore virtual asset service provider, published in March 2026, shows how criminals exploit poorly regulated offshore VAPs to move illicit funds across borders. In one case, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit uncovered a major investment fraud scheme in which offshore VAPs helped channel stolen proceeds through multiple wallets and blockchains. A single VAP linked wallet had nearly 600 USD million, illustrating just how easy this platform can obscure the true source of funds. If I may ask, if one unregulated platform can have hundreds of millions of dollars, what does that mean for the future international legal cooperation? Regionally, West Africa faces a different but equally significant institutional challenges. The ECOWAS community level, an essential revenue stream supporting all regional institutions, has declined sharply, creating operational constraints across the architecture for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. In a 2025 interview, I warned that this budget crisis affects every ECOWAS body, including the Commission, the Court, and Parliament, limiting the capacity to enforce existing anti-money laundering laws and other jurisprudence that safeguard the peace and security of our community. I caution that laws without enforcement are empty shells, emphasizing that while the political will remain strong, the region must urgently strengthen predictable and sustained funding to prevent regression in our effort to fight financial crimes effectively. At the same time, West Africa is confronting a surge in cyber and every money laundering. In 2025, Jabat Apology Report document how criminal networks across the region increasingly exploit social engineering fraud, mobile money platforms, crypto mason services, and cross-border ransomware operation. These schemes move illicit proceeds rapidly across jurisdiction, overwhelming traditional investigative tools and exposing regulatory gaps in supervision, beneficiary ownership, transparency, and federal access compliance. The region, rising digital adoption, while economically empowering, has created new vulnerabilities that demand harmonized legal response and real-time information sharing. It is at this junction that I request that all jurists, lawyers, and legal practitioners in this room realign our thinking for clarity, procedural alignment, and a harmonized legal instrument so as to fight on one approach and one front as West African. As we strengthen our partnership with the ILA, we envision greater collaboration in shaping robust legal framework, advancing regional jurisprudence, and ensuring that West Africa voice continues to influence the evolving global financial integrity architecture. Together, let us carry forward the spirit of international law as a beacon of justice, cooperation, hope for our shared future, and sustained security for our community. Towards this end, I thank you for your listening. Thank you very much.
Let's make it resounding, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Edwin Harris. Ladies and gentlemen, a very well-researched paper, you must agree with me, and a well-articulated presentation you had there. And we appreciate you particularly for stating the areas of partnership with ILA. I believe this is indeed a cogent deliverable going forward. Thank you so much indeed, sir. At this point, the floor is open for interventions. Thank you. Questions, observation. I believe we have some people online as well, but let's start with the people present physically. Do we have questions for Mr. Harris? Do we have suggestions?
Okay, thank you so much, Your Excellency, for the beautiful address. You know, when we were talking, I listened keenly, and I saw all that Giaba had done, looking at all the mechanisms. So now, looking at Giaba's work, how can we integrate that with the role of international law? That is, how can the role of international law impact the work of Giaba, and then driving it home to see how will that strengthen our own anti-corruption war in Nigeria? Did you get my question? I should repeat it again. Thank you very much.
As I stated in my paper, we look forward for collaboration with the ILA. So when you review all of our mutual evaluation during the second round, we have common area that every member state beat in terms of gaps and deficit in their legal framework. Now, what is needed is like procedural clarification or harmonized instrument. For example, so we have, I think, 5 Anglophone countries in the region, and the rest are Francophone. So you see, legal instrument from Francophone country largely differ from legal instrument from Anglophone country. Even among us Anglophone, so they would take know your customer or instrument. What is in Nigeria may be slightly different from what is in Ghana or Gambia, Sierra Leone or Liberia. So we think it is time that we have a common, single, harmonized, because now we are preparing for a new currency in West Africa, the ECHO. Okay, so maybe that's news to some of you, but we are preparing. I think by 2030, this should be rolled out. So with these difference in a policy, legal instrument, and thing, how do we expect? So I think that the role of the International Law Association and other bars across the region, which we are working with, to see how, okay, we come together, make proposals, bring legal clarity, clarification on how we have a single but harmonized but simplified. Because sometimes we can have laws that is working and we complicate it. So what we need a simplified law. However, the essence and the value in terms of preventing crimes and also preserving the integrity of our financial institution are not lost, but it should be simplified. So I would really suggest and look forward not only to the International Law Association, but legal bars association across the region. So maybe this year we can find more time to see how we can sit, which we have in our work plan, to see how we can sit with the legal practitioners to start or open a conversation on how we can have harmonized legal instrument so as to strengthen our fight against transnational crime. I hope that answers your question.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency. There's a question online. We are trying to pull it out. Okay. Lupasaro is asking, given the limitations of mutual legal assistance treaties and uneven political will among correspondent banking partners, how do you see the role of international law evolving to close the asymmetry between where illicit funds originate and where they are ultimately sheltered? And what institutional reforms, if any, do you believe are necessary at the level of a UN or FATF to make that architecture more equitable for developing nation enforcement agencies?
Thank you for the question. So, when it comes to mutual legal assistance, all of our country in the region, okay, has that law in place. Now, does the law work? That's the question, okay? So I think that it go beyond our operational level to sometimes political level. Because let's assume if someone committed a crime and have been spotted in our investigation in Nigeria, and the person is maybe in Pakistan, okay? So the first question, is there an extradition treaty between Nigeria and Pakistan? Now, I know at the FIU level in Nigeria, they will have all the necessary cooperation information from their counterpart in Pakistan because they are member of the EMA group. So informally, they will have of that. But the formal mechanism that already exists, okay, it takes political will. So I give you my own experience when I was director at the FIU in Liberia. We were investigating jointly a case, and then extradition was needed. So we have mutual evaluation, mutual legal assistance in place with the US and and all the evidence were available, tangible, clear that this happened. The political will was not there. In fact, the US wrote back and said, no, this extradition you have is since 1821. Okay, so before we add on it, it must be rework, amendment should take place, and things. So then I thought to myself, if it was the other way around, that maybe the US needed this person from Liberia, we would say that this extradition treaty we have was since 1821, it does not exist anymore. So it takes political will, and it takes, so this part is going to, about the United Nations, what do we see? I think international organizations, United Nations, EU, and the big countries across the globe, I think it is time we all should sit and do a soul searching, whether or not fighting financial crime, we use it in a means that to be politically correct as we fight, or we should fight using the concept of being politically incorrect. But what I see in my experience, okay, over the years, most often financial crimes are fought using the concept of being politically correct. Okay, sometimes we use that to go after those who we don't want. And sometimes we protect those who we want, even though the evidence are clear. So above all, we should allow all of the laws we have in our member states, mutual legal assistance, and those extradition treaties we have across the globe to work, okay, if we want to fight financial crime and not to cherry pick. So I see that mutual legal assistance not really working out because it is not in existence. It's because those that are in charge to implement and enforce it have interest. Until we remove the veil of interest, we can fight financial crime holistically, and it will impact positively our security. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Harris. A beautiful mind indeed. Of course, he is the Director General, Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GIABA. And moving on now, you know, a culture of giving back is one of the cornerstones of our existence in Africa. And now you have impacted on us. It is time to give you our Widow Smite, you know, just to appreciate you for your magnanimity. To do this presentation, shall I invite Dr. Grace Duffield. Thank you very much. Thank you.
On behalf of the Governing Council of ILA, the National Executive Council, and members of ILA, will please present this token to you, and we'll hope to see you at our dinner tonight. Please. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, our legal luminaries present, we have to shrink up the next session a little bit. So you have a program, but now, for the breakout session, we are going to collapse the 2A and 2B. And to moderate this session, shall I invite the Research Professor, Nigeria Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, Professor Ibe Ifekandu. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. She won't be doing this alone. She'll be doing it in partnership with Uzamaka Obidike of the ECOWAS Commission. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. They are going to be moderating this session. And our discussants for this session, we have the Secretary General of ILA Nigerian Branch, Clement Osuya. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Then we also have the Chairperson, Committee on Natural Resources, Energy and Environment, Oluwaseyi Ebenezer. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We also have the Senior Associate and Team Lead, Arbitration Practice, Olaniwun Ajayi, LP. Member ILA Committee on International Commercial Arbitration and ADR, Mr. Isaac Ibikunle. A round of applause. Thank you very much. Then we bring the Director Legal Services, Department of RMAFC, that is Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, Dr. Miriam Shehu Muhammad. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Okay. Then we have from the University of Abuja, Dr. Jimo Musa Yusuf. A round of applause. Thank you very much. We also have the EDHOPDI, Mrs. Rukaya O. Abdulaziz. A round of applause, please. Thank you very much. And then Head GIABA Office in Nigeria, Mr. Timothy Melaye. A round of applause, please. I'm seeing the future of gender balance here. Is it lopsided? I think we should lopside a little bit, then we'll balance later. But I love what I'm seeing. It's a very good mix. Thank you very much. Okay, so at this point, I have an addition. The Chief Superintendent, ICPC, Mr. Anekan Ekon. A round of applause, please. So for the moderator, we're going to, Mr. Anekan can come here. Ma'am, please. You can moderate. Yes, please. Mr. Anekan, you can come here, please. Yeah, you can bring that for the moderator. Okay, it might take you a while, that's why. Okay. So I yield the floor to you now. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you so much. All right. So over the past 2 days, we've listened to experts speak about how IFF continue to undermine our collective existence, particularly in terms of how in fact, it triggers and sustains underdevelopment in the country. In the course of their presentations, they had made far-reaching recommendations, particularly as it relates to the need to shift from reactive to risk-based supervision. They have also recommended that we need to strengthen, and even this morning, we listened to how it is imperative for us to strengthen beneficial ownership transparency. And we had prepared questions, but I thought it wise to give them access to the information that they can relate to us. So I'm just going to be asking each and every one of them to bring their perspectives to the topics, the two topics. They are interrelated. The first topic, let me just read it out so I don't miss out a word. So the first topic is asset recovery and proactive enforcement, consumer protection and dispute resolution. And then the second topic is asset recovery and proactive enforcement, rethinking tools for global financial integrity. And as you are aware, this is a merged panel. So they're going to be speaking to these issues, particularly in the need, as it relates to the need for us to always take proactive steps in stopping or preventing IFF rather than, chasing after it is gone. So more or less, they're going to be speaking to the subject matter of prevention and how to ensure. You recall that IFF had given us a very bad reputation internationally. The Prime Minister of UK had the guts to speak publicly about Nigeria being fantastically corrupt. So we need to do something to ensure that we don't give people that leverage to always speak ill, even to our faces. So I will be calling, first of all, Mr. Clement Osuya, who is an expert in arbitration, to address the topic from the perspective of arbitration. Thank you. I would like more of practical experience. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Kandu. I appreciate that we are going to discuss how we can use arbitration to combat crime in relation to illicit financial flows from Africa or globally. First and foremost, we try to have the nexus. What is the connection between arbitration and illicit financial flows? Some may not see the connection, but we start from the preliminaries where there's a whole lot of discussion that borders on the majority of the illicit financial flows are centered on commercial transactions. And what kind of commercial transactions are we talking about? These are heavy financial transactions that involves loss of funds covering millions or even billions of dollars. Now, if you are entering into a contract as a lawyer or as an international lawyer, the first thing you do is to ensure that you inscribe a very strong clause in your contract agreement. That is one. Two, you conduct due diligence. Then three, try to do the due diligence will involve one, you understand the parties involved, try to get more in-depth knowledge about who and who. Some call it know your customer, some call it know your client. Due diligence, request for documents. Say for instance, there are some companies where you request for the information of the registration documentations. If these companies are not resident in Nigeria, for instance, you can as well as conduct due diligence to find out who are the shareholders, who are the directors of these companies. These are one of the key areas that you build preliminaries in due diligence. Then also, one of the major hurdles that people face is that there are some countries that Nigeria, for instance, a foreigner who comes to the country to come and do contract, registers a company, and as an international lawyer or as an attorney that is involved in the commercial transaction, you owe a duty to investigate the kind of bilateral agreements that Nigeria has with those country nationals. We have had a lot of issues that people take advantages of some of the loopholes. I'll give you, for instance, there was a time Nigeria had an issue, maybe many of you heard about it, where they seized our aircraft. They said they seized presidential aircraft. Many of you heard about that? You heard about it. So now, what happened? What is the nature of this transaction? Ogun State government entered into a contract with with a Chinese company. And they did not, yes, they entered into a contract with Chinese government, and at the end of the contract process, or during the process of the contract was terminated. They went to arbitration. The arbitration, during the panel sitting, Nigerian government, the part of the Ogun State raised an objection that they are subnational government, that the agreement entered cannot affect the national government, which is the Nigerian. Nigeria is the national government, Ogun is a subnational government. But you will not know that there was a treaty that Nigeria entered with Chinese government. And what is the content of this treaty? That any contract that is entered between the citizens, companies that are from China, and there is a breach of contract, parties resort to arbitration. There is an arbitral award. That country, that is the company that is Chinese, can execute any property that belongs to the Nigerian government. So these are some of the things that, as a lawyer, you should conduct due diligence. Let's assume this scenario is a scheme to conduct election.
Dr. Jimo, I just want to be sure that it's you first. Dr. Jimo, please. So Dr. Jimo will be talking to us from the academia. So he's going to give us an academic perspective to the issues at stake. Thank you. Doc, please, you have 5 minutes. I'm sure as a teacher, you know how to summarize.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And let me say thank you for all the people that have spoken. At least you laid the foundation for us we that want to talk after. My own approach is going to be like this. I'm very happy that our audience are significantly students and young people who are the owners of the entire universe, not only Nigeria, but because they are Nigerians. You are the owner of Nigeria of today and tomorrow. The era of your time is going to be, you are the leader of tomorrow, is in the past. I think we are addressing the right set of people. because this has to do with corruption. And corruption is the thing of the mind. If we are fighting corruption in the courts, we'll find it extremely difficult because the fundamentals, if fundamentals are not addressed, and it has to be from home, and this is the part from home building. It has to do with value. Our value system is already being eroded because of the fact that we prioritize things that are not really needed, things that are not really needed, but things that we want. And you find that majority of families have taken their responsibility to an external agencies. We no longer instill values in our children any longer. And at the same time, we take our children to be our friends rather than our children. They're two different things. I was arguing with somebody who was telling me my children are my friends. I said, no, your children are your children, they're not your friends. You can treat them friendly, but they're not your friends. If your friend offends you, can you beat the friend? No, you cannot. And again, we find that parents will do things these days that are unthinkable even before our children. We teach them disobedience. We teach them corruption from home because unconsciously. So I think we have to start from home, and children too have to see the reasons why they must be patriotic. Patriotism is a major problem of corruption. Nobody sees Nigeria as a project any longer. Everybody wants to maximize, wherever position you are given, you want to maximize the profit to your own advantage, not to what you even swear in to observe. So from home, we have to work. School, now this is a societal capacity building. I want to appeal to all of us that are young ones today, stop thinking about what you can amass from Nigeria, but think of what you can do to contribute to the advancement of this country. Corruption is a major thing that I don't know how we can tackle it. It's a global issue. From individual home to the system that we operate to cater for the problem, to solve the problem, and even the post system, the post procedure that we engage to solve the problem. Every entire thing is going to be anchored by human. Whatever system that you have to correct a particular system has to be operated by a woman. So if a human component of our system is corrupt, there is no way we'll compromise it. So every stakeholder, every key player, because lawyers are very, very key in fighting corruption. So, and from the basis that we're tackling it, I think it's very, very... Before we now look at what are those challenges the law that we have put in place faces to even tackle this problem. After we have repatriated all this funds, there is a re-corruption again. When this money comes, it may not be channeled towards development. Some people are waiting there again to pocket the money. If this money comes again, so you find out that it is all encompassing. But we have to start from home. After home, we go to school, from school to the society. Now, before we now talk about the law that we have, there are a lot of challenges that the laws that we have are facing, which has to do with legal pluralism, where you find out that the state operate different laws. So the law we operate in Nigeria is not even unified. When you talked about fighting corruption, we have the rigidity of evidence, because law will say you must prove beyond reasonable doubt. And there are a lot of people who are there to circumvent. There are a lot of people we have laws, we have our banking secrecy. If you are pursuing a particular illicit fund, bank will not release information for you because they still have a law that protects their secrets. So all these things are things that compromise. So we have to look at it from the scratch to the top bottom before we can really tackle the problem. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this is you reiterating what Professor Victor said yesterday about bringing an element of morality into anti-corruption
very
fight.
Important. Very important.
So thank you very much for that perspective. I will come to, they say, who the cap fits. I deliberately left you till the end. So Mr. Melaye is the head of the JABA office in Nigeria. So he will be bringing his perspective to how we can have a proactive enforcement of asset recovery particularly as you know it relates to bringing in the element of integrity. So please, you have 5 minutes. And since you're the last, maybe I may be partial and add a minute for you. So thank you. I yield the floor to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Speaking last means that you are compensated with additional time. I'll be speaking to us on, indeed, asset recovery. I would like to add some components that relates to rethinking the global realities, particularly the international cooperation, which colleagues have mentioned. I want to thank them for the brilliant contributions already made. The first thing I want to look into is first preventive measure. What do we have currently in asset recovery? We have a law, the POCA law, the Proceeds of Crime Acts. This specify how, for instance, Nigeria can recover stolen goods. The first thing that I also want to highlight is that we have the asset declaration processes, particularly focusing on public office holders. Asset declaration in itself is a platform that has been created for you to say, this is what I have before getting to office. Now, there is what politicians, permit me to use the word, or public office holders do, anticipatory declaration. What does it mean to declare anticipatorily? If I get to the office, I'm going to make money. From the money, I'm going to buy 10 houses. So now that I'm getting to the office, I'm going to provide information on 10 houses. And real estate owners and business owners as such are collaborators in implementing this. So the work needs to be deep and wide. And I'm going to be a bit brutally truthful with you this afternoon. First, when assets are declared, there is set up to anticipatorily declare what you don't even have. So that when I get to office, when they say 10 houses, I will say I've declared 10 houses before I got to office. This needs to be addressed. The second part of it, which I classify as technical compliance, here is to say, do you have the POCA law? Yes, we have it. Do you have asset declaration? Yes, we have it. But then, after declaring the assets, do we have effectiveness? Who verifies what is declared? If I declare 10 houses, do you verify to see that I have 10 houses? If I say the house number 13, maybe Ahmed Issa Street, who is verifying that Ahmed Issa Street number 15 actually belongs to me? And these are the things that we must address in terms of effectiveness. And the third aspect of it I will talk about is sanction. Sanction must be proportionate, must be appropriate, and must be dissuasive. If sanction does not meet these three major criteria, we're going to have issues. Somebody stole 2 billion, and in the courts is given a sanction to remit 100,000 or 6 months imprisonment. That is not dissuasive. He will do it over and over again. I ask students, when I go to university to speak to students, to say, you are young people, if you are given the opportunity now to get 5 billion naira and go to prison for 5 years, some will say, I will go for 10 years. If I'm sure when I return back, the money will be waiting for me. Because if I here work out as much as I can't keep that money in the next 50 years. So the sanction must be dissuasive. The other aspect I will complete with this with international cooperation in terms of issues of integrity. And I say this, anyone who have lost integrity have nothing more to lose. You've lost it all. And until indeed we insist on having integrity, we have nothing. Our society must be a society that has integrity. You cannot just call someone, you live in UK, and send somebody money to build a house without a nightmare. How do people get job when there is no integrity? On international cooperation, I would like to also reintegrate the discussion around asset recovery, particularly. We have all the instruments, be them the Egmont Group, be them mutual legal assistance, be them bilateral or multilateral corporations, UN instruments. Do they work? Do they work? I sat in an intellectual class of a discussion of experts at Cambridge University in 2019. When UK was given analysis of the unexplained wealth order, it's a new order of the UK at the time for them to deal with the issue of unexplained wealth. You know, in money laundering palace, we say that money laundering is a derivative crime. You must have committed one crime to generate the fund before you can launder it. But there's an argument in that intellectual class to say it's possible for you to accuse somebody of money laundering without identifying the predicate offense that made him to commit money laundering. What was that argument of that intellectual point? That somebody who is driving a car of 60 million naira and whose salary is 40,000 naira and have no other means of income, that person can be accused of money laundering by inverting of the law that says you must prove him guilty beyond reasonable doubt. The onus is on you to prove. In this case now, the onus is on the person to come and justify that this money is not stolen money. And by those laws, they can take over the property from you if you cannot justify the source. Now, given that premise, those laws permit people now, when you come to, for instance, UK, with your money, and you cannot justify the money, the UK government will take the money. One place I have issues with them in that particular session was the fact that by that new law now, the money will not be returned back to the countries where the money was gotten from. Because the law requires you to say, when the money is coming to our country, you declare the source of the money. I stole money from Central Bank. I'm bringing the money to UK, and I will declare that this money was stolen from Central Bank. On that condition, if anything happened, the money can go back to Nigeria. That is criminal. And my question is this: my mother, who was not fully educated, said something. The person that stole yam from the barn, the one that helped him to receive it on the ground, and the one that stored the yam for him, the three of them are thieves. Whether it's UK, whether it's US, whether it's Switzerland, whether it's Germany, that receive stolen wealth, the countries are also criminal countries. The Thabo Mbeki report of, I think, 2008 said $50 billion was the amount of annual illicit flow out of Africa. Now the staggering figure is over $88 billion per annum. Imagine where this money is going and not coming back. So the countries that receive stolen wealth are also criminal countries. The point is that wealth should be returned to the countries of origin with no precondition, because when criminal is caught, it's expected to refund what is stolen. Therefore, we must have an instrument globally that promotes this position, that every stolen wealth, no matter where it is found, should return back to the owner, and that this issue of victim. Who is the victim of the criminal? If you take the wealth and you begin to share by percentage, because it came to my jurisdiction, if Abacha's loot, one of them will return back in 2025. Approximately the money left the country in 1995. This is 30 years. If somebody kept money in the fixed account for 30 years, imagine what profit it will have gotten. They are not giving profits, they are not returning full money, they are taking percentages, and that is also criminal in nature. Countries that stole, country where it's stolen should keep their gates. But when the gate is not kept, it gets to your country, return the money to the country that holds it without condition. Then we can talk about egalitarianism. Otherwise, in a lawless society, it is criminal to be law-abiding. Thank you.
See why I gave him more time. Thank you for that perspective. I'll declare the floor open. Do you have any question, any intervention? Yes?
Thank you. Good morning. I want to just know the stand of ILA on the aspect of capital punishment. Mr. You talk so much on sanction, but I want to probably hear your view. What could we gain as a nation if we integrate capital punishment in the measure to take care of the illicit flow of flow? If we want to give ourselves a kind of a joy, we say the issue of corruption is global. It's global. So that one we are a bit at home. We are a bit cool that it's global. But the level of corruption in Japan, in China, probably Iran and Saudi Arabia. I doubt if that is same. It's global. We are a bit encouraging ourselves to go ahead after all. It's going on Ghana, it's going on South Africa. But when we compare the extent, the impact that it has cost Nigeria, when we see the amount of the money that, that go offshore of the country and what is going on, the kind of punishment that meted out to the people that are corrupt in Japan.
You can summarize your intervention, please.
Law in Nigeria or ILA as association integrating capital punishment in curtailing the extent of the
Please, when you have intervention, go straight to your point. If it's a question, just go ahead and ask your question, please. You have just 2 minutes to make your point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, moderator and your team. Thank you for doing a wonderful job. My question or concern is actually on the use of arbitration, particularly if you look at the theme talking about mitigating economic and financial crimes, and that's why we have EFCC on board, ICPC, NAFIU, and what have you. Now, if you look at arbitration from the context of a private individual signing an agreement for a contract between party A and party B, I think one can be comfortable to discuss arbitration and putting in so many things there. But what about if it is actually a crime, going by the theme? Can you actually use arbitration this time around, a crime against the state? Is it actually the right instrument to use, or there is any other way of how to address that? That's actually my concern, and thank you so much for all you have said. Thank you.
My question is, realistically speaking, asset recovery is slow, politically constrained, and it is only a fraction of the stolen wealth that it's recovered. My question is it truly a solution, or is it merely a symbolic response?
Good afternoon. Thank you for a very interesting panel that did justice to the topics. My question is to the last panelist who talked about the use of AI tools to tackle some of these financial crimes. And my question is, do you genuinely believe that AI is developed enough, or the AI systems in place are developed enough to be able to investigate these crimes without bias? Because even in more developed crimes, we've seen instances where AI has been deployed to investigate and fight crime, and there have been issues of bias. So do we think that it's in a place where it's developed enough to tackle? When you mentioned bias that the AI is supposed to tackle, the AI is created by human beings, and the human beings can translate their bias into the AI systems that they build. So is that not still an issue? And then who is responsible for actually developing and deploying this AI system? Thank you. Or who should be responsible? Thank you.
Please, after these two, no more.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. I think I have 3 questions. One for the civil society. Yes, we understand that the civil society, the pressure and all that. But I really want to understand how international law can improve the role of civil societies in trying to mitigate economic and financial crimes in Nigeria. Then I have another question. Considering that the theme is on, yes, we are considering the shifting global order, and then we are seeing how the rule-based international law is consistently being disregarded by developed nations. How does this come in where we see a situation that money can move from Nigeria illegally to another country, and let's say there is a rule, right? And then these particular nations exploiting the sovereignty doctrine decide to just let it go. How does international law come in to cover these loopholes that are currently being discovered? And then the third question, while we understand that there are legal, let's say, hitches, yes, because you have to prove everything in Nigerian court. And then I think the last speaker made something as relating to, yes, that's Section 74 of the Criminal Proceeds of Crime Act, where you have to prove that you own, that you bought this thing legally. How do we reconcile it with the provisions of the law? Because we still understand that the legal procedures in place are meant to make sure that, to ensure stability in the legal construct. I think these are my questions.
There was a hand here, or there is a hand here. Okay. There are about 3 hands here.
Okay,
So after that, no more.
my name is Felix Obiamalo. I'm of the NFIU. First, I wish to state that the Unexplained Wealth Act is also replicated in Nigeria under Section 18.9 of the MLPPA. So once it's believed that you are living beyond your means, it's already a crime on its own. And the issue of he who alleges must prove, as my colleague said now, has also been overturned by the provision of Section 74 of POCA. So you don't need to prove. Once the prosecutor has alleged that you live above your means, the onus is on you to show the proof of funds. My question is on the issue of remittance of stolen assets raised by Mr. Tim Melaye. Yes. Of the view, too, that we have to repatriate all that was stolen from us. However, it is beyond domestic laws to insist it must be returned. And my question is based on the fact that Mr. Melaye is part of the international standard setters. So what mechanism, and also that's where international law advocates come in, what mechanism do we use to get these recipients of stolen assets to return them? And how do we convince them that these returned assets will not be relooted, considering what has been happening? Thank you.
Thank you. This way, please. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, everyone. You have done a good job. Kudos to you all. My question is this: what can we do? Since we have over 18 agencies managing recovery of stolen assets, what mechanism, what measures can we put in place to prevent these assets from being deleted? Because looking at, considering the Sonny Abacha's recovered loot, some of them have been relooted again. What can we do to break this barrier, preventing this asset from being relooted? One, overlapping of the functions of this agency, regulating recovered assets. Two, since we don't have a centralized agency managing recovered assets, which has been a major barrier in Nigeria, and MLA, mutual legal assistance challenges too, what can we do? What lasting solution can we prefer to put an end to these challenges? Thank you.
See the guy over there. Sure. Yeah,
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to all the panelists that spoke earlier. My question is directed to Mr. Clement and Mr. Isaac, seeing as they are the two experts on arbitration in the panel. So, juxtaposing the attempt of proactive measures of asset protection through international treaties with arbitration as a weapon against economic and financial crimes, is the way forward to solely focus on arbitration or to find a means of achieving synergy between both?
Good morning to the panel, and thank you very much for your excellent and erudite presentations. 2 points. Self-declaration. Before I came to law, I'm a fourth generation lawyer in my family. I'm Okorodudu, and we've been producing lawyers for almost 90 years. So I was a pastor. My first degree was in theology. So I have a deep interest in how value systems can change society. And I saw what happened in Switzerland, how through their reformation, the whole world felt that this is a place we can put our money. I think the point I'm trying to make is that the finesse and beauty of law is commendable, but unless hearts are changed, no matter how many laws you write, people will continue to steal with impunity if they know they can get away with it. In spite of all the beautiful work that our financial agencies are doing, corruption is still blowing up. Our roads are not being fixed, our public goods are not being delivered. And I finish with this. Baba Michael Ajasin, who was a very close friend of my family, was like a grandfather to me, but he was, a friend of my family for several years. He went into government with no more than 5 outfits. He left government with 5 outfits. The military junta of Idi Agbon and Buhari came and threw him in jail. That, for me, is at the knob of the corruption crisis that I think has inspired this conference. Once again, my good thanks to the speakers and the organizers. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for your questions. Who wants to go first? Anieka? Melaye? Who wants to go first, please?
Okay, thank you so much. I will be dealing with the question that should I call you my learned friend or just a colleague? You asked a very important question, how to address fraud or crime through arbitration. Is that not your question? All right, so now, let us not miss this. There are certain things that arbitration cannot do. Under the Nigerian legal system, you cannot be sent to prison, or rather, you cannot be convicted for a crime to serve a jail term through arbitration. And I don't think it is done anywhere in the world. So, but what is the beauty of arbitration? Arbitration can be used to stop fraud. Like I said, the popular case of P.I.&D., Process Industry and Development. For those of you who do not know about this case, so many years, some years ago, that was around 2010, there was a contract entered by this company with Nigeria to provide certain services regarding petroleum sector. But unfortunately, the contract was cancelled. They took Nigeria to arbitration tribunal. They got an award of $6.6 billion. That is a big sum. And that troubled Nigeria. It was one of the highest, if not the highest award ever given to a state actor. But let's assume now Nigeria want to comply with the award without going further. But what did the government do? The government had to go back to the table, look at the books, and discover that the contract was not, there was no even sand that was put on ground to start the contract. And our contract was awarded. Is that not fraud? So the government went to court to raise the issue of fraud. Under the different arbitration law, international laws, ultra-modern rules, ultra-modern laws, and all of that, once fraud is established, the court can set aside an award. The courts had to look at, the British court had to look at the contract company was registered barely the same period. The company does not even have history of transaction. There's no history of experience. There's no money even in their account. And you want to collect money from Nigerian government, $6.6 billion, including interest, amounting to about $11 billion. I'm sure if Nigerian government had paid this money, all of us would not be here because they won't be able to fund this place. But they challenged it. The court had to look at the elements of fraud, and they discovered that fraud existed. And what happened? They have to quash the award. And the court had to dismiss the award. Even up to the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom. Recently, the company that took Nigerian government to court, to the arbitration tribunal, was awarded about 200 million British pounds or 10 million British pounds or thereabout, as a consequence, as a penalty for using fraud as a strategy to take money away from Nigeria. These are illicit financial flows. So arbitration can be used in the context of commercial, but not in the context of conviction. I hope I've been able to give you the explanation. But if it's not enough, I'm ready to give more because of time. But my colleague is also going to throw more light. Thank you so much.
Okay, so please just keep your responses very brief, because we are way ahead, behind time.
Okay, so I will just answer some of these questions. So on the arbitration, whether we can use arbitration against crime, and I think the point there is that crime is against the state, right? So the answer to that is about framing. What you bring into arbitration, you are not calling it a crime, right? You're saying there's fraud, you're saying there's fraudulent misrepresentation, and you're saying maybe breach of trust, right? Then it's also, in addition to framing, it's also about remedy that you're seeking. Now, what you're seeking is recovery of that money. For instance, you can say damages, you can say costs of even pursuing the arbitration, right? So framing remedy will take you out of the realm of crime to the realm of civil claims that you can conveniently bring before arbitration and recover the illicit fund. States can also do the same. State does not have to prosecute in arbitration. In arbitration, state can also bring a claim for fraud. We've seen it. I mentioned the other time that there is an arbitration that's going on in Paris, that Nigeria is bringing a claim, a counter-claim of corruption in order to defend the case, right? So, and that has also been upheld in arbitration. And I think one challenge we may also be having is whether those allegations connected with crime are arbitrable. I've mentioned they are arbitrable. So you can use arbitration to fight corruption, financial crimes, effectively under international law. Then there's also a point on a question about the evidential standard of proof.
Strong as domestic law supports it, especially in this country. So if you don't domesticate these laws, it's as good as agreement on paper, neat, clean, good, we read them, we theorize and write essays about it. But when it comes to practicality, it won't work, it won't deliver results. That's why I'm saying that we need to strengthen international law through domestic laws. In other words, let us try to convert most of these innovations that are compelled under international law into our domestic laws to the widest extent possible, so that it can be easy to enforce it through the court when the need arises. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I know I will have that with you. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you more time to summarize because we are. So I just want to seize this opportunity to thank our panelists for their invaluable contributions, and also thank the participants for their wonderful engagements. So effectively, we've come to the end of this session. So we just have to put our hands together to ensure that we help Nigeria to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, discussants. In our usual fashion, it's time to present some gifts to our discussant. Dr. Daffel, are you doing? Okay, the president, yes. Professor Damilola is here. Okay, senior advocate of Nigeria, please. May I at this point recognize the presence of Her Excellency Dr. Fatou Bensouda. Thank you for joining us today. We see you. We appreciate you. Thank you, ma'am. And we have a piece of information, please, for participants. Thank you. Okay, good photograph. All right, that does it for this section.
That's what Madam Chair said before. Please, before I even say what I have to say, I want us all to give a very special person a round of applause, please. Please, a round of applause, please. So yes, it is the custom that we have many institutions participate in the debate competition. This year we had over 53 law faculties across Nigeria participate. And of course, every year only 4 faculties make it to the final round. And this year we had 4 faculties make it to the final round, just as was said earlier on. But circumstances due to our own calendar clashing with the institution's calendar restricted the participation of a particular school out of the 4, which made us resort to eliminating 2, since 1 is not standing. But you know the way they say is that the day the sun is shining for you, even the rain that falls that day will not let the sun go down. So please, by the grace of God, Veritas University will be debating this morning. Please, round of applause for them. Yes, I'll be buying my senior colleague here a bit of time. He will communicate with you on what you'll be debating, and you'll be given a few minutes after Afe Babalola and Ebonyi State University come up to debate. So let me confirm if they are fully ready now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your audience. We have the finals of the International Law Association Inter-University Debate. As he mentioned, we had about 52 law faculties participate, and after multiple rounds, we have come down to the final 4 universities for the competition. And now we have the grand finals, which is going to be between Ebonyi State University and Afe Babalola University. Please, a round of applause for these schools. Okay, so what we'll do is that we'll provide just about 10 minutes for the team in position, Afe Babalola University for the teams to prepare accordingly. So in proposition, we have Team Ebonyi State University, and in team opposition, we have Afe Babalola University. You kindly have 10 minutes. While that is ongoing, I will read out the modalities for the competition. In order of speaking, teams shall speak in alternating order. So we have the first speaker from proposition, then we would have the first speaker from opposition, we'll have the second speaker from proposition, and then we'll have the second speaker from opposition, and then any speaker from proposition and opposition for the rebuttal round. The first speaker would have 5 minutes only, while the second speaker would have 5 minutes, and then the rebuttal speakers would have 3 minutes. Also, for the Veritas University team that would be speaking after this round, you would have to divide yourselves into two, and would have this courtesy of, thank you, Ma, thank you very much. There's an award for that. So I'm reading out the motion for your debate. Okay, so the new motion for the debate is this. This House would establish, you would have 15 minutes, just about 15 minutes to prepare. This House would establish a binding global enforcement regime with supranatural authority to investigate and prosecute economic and financial crimes. I'll go with that again. This House would establish a binding global enforcement regime with supranatural authority to investigate and prosecute economic and financial crimes. While Veritas, you will be speaking on this, on the topic I'm about to read out for you now. For the first and second, you will be using the same positions as has been finally settled. Is that correct? Okay. For Veritas, we would like to hear you speak on this motion. This House believes that the concept of economic and financial crime in international law is fundamentally shaped by the interests of dominant states and should therefore be rejected as a neutral basis for global regulation. This House believes that the concept of economic and financial crime in international law is fundamentally shaped by the interest of dominant states and should therefore be rejected as a neutral basis for global regulation. So right after the debate happens, we'll be hearing from the Veritas University speakers. I'd also encourage the audience, please, when the speakers are speaking, try not to clap so that it doesn't cover what they say. You can just snap your fingers or wave your hands so that we don't get distracted. And the speakers as well don't get distracted. Thank you very much. Now you can give them a round of applause. They're yet to start speaking.
I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. This House would establish a binding global enforcement regime with supernatural authority to investigate and prosecute economic and financial crime. Notice that economic and financial crime are transnational, complex and systematic, and therefore require a centralized, binding and supernatural enforcement mechanism. This is why we propose Moki Silas Harun is the first speaker proposition. Before I go into my speech, I'm going to be doing few framings and then tell you how our policy of establishing these supernatural authorities to investigate and prosecute this economic and financial crime, and then tell you how they are going to make this work better in status quo, and then I'll be showing you how we are going to most likely achieve this economic, eradicate economic and financial crime in the system. So first of all, let's tell you how does this supernatural powers authorities are established. These are going to be established by United Nations, whereby individuals, countries that are members are going to be binding on those supernatural authorities. Their work is just very simple: to investigate and prosecute crime, economic and financial crime that exists in the member states. Their work is not to punish these offenders, but they are just investigating and then taking them up to court, and all of these things happen in status quo. We tell you that these individuals are most likely going to have exhausted local remedies that are existing in their various states, and that means like they have like better option and a better incentive to kind of like make these actions happen in status quo, and this is most likely going to solve the issue that is existing. We tell you that there is no mechanism that is existing in the international standard to enforce and investigate crimes that are existing in member states. This is why we think that this policy is a better one, and then it's most likely going to give a better option to member states, and then to majority of these member states that is in UN. My first argument here is I'm going to show you that the current states fail due to jurisdictional fragmentations. Why is this true? Is that criminals move money across multiple jurisdictions to avoid detections. No single state has like a full information and enforcement reach for these kind of things. Why this thing exists first is that because we don't even have like mechanisms to be able to like investigate these crimes, and then those laws that are existing that kind of like make these countries to come together and all of these things do not necessarily have like mechanisms to be able to achieve this aim. This is why we think it's important for us to actually establish this supernatural power that is existing in status quo. Why is this important? Is that millions are lost, according to World Bank, millions are lost annually to illicit financial flows. That means we need to take up action because the already existing mechanisms have stopped. Opposition must show us how the already existing mechanism or what other alternative they are most likely going to bring to be able to like to reduce these financial, economic and financial crimes that are existing in status quo. If they don't do that, they lose this round. The impact here is that, and why this argument is mutually exclusive, is that we create a centralized enforcement and then close loopholes that is existing in the status quo. We tell you that laws are existing, but there are not mechanisms for these laws to be implemented in status quo. This is why it becomes largely impossible, because we have like one of the finest laws, but when we don't have mechanisms, even when local remedies fail, we don't necessarily see individuals that investigate or centralized actions that investigate this crime. That is why we see that this crime continues to exist in the system. Second argument, let me show you that domestic systems are often unwilling and then unable to prosecute. Notice, panel, that majority of political elites in majority member countries kind of are involved in these corruptions, and they're most likely not going to even like when we talk about independent judiciary, that doesn't necessarily have like happen in the real sense, but these individuals are most likely not going to be able to be prosecuted in these domestic states. That means there are needed issues, they need like external forces or external mechanisms for these actions to be able to be solved in the system. When we think that these actions are not solved in the local, in the member states, is because majority of these politicians are involved in this crime, and they are most likely going to be issues of bribing and corruption that exist in status quo. This function of these supernatural authorities now to investigate this crime and then prosecute it in the system. Why is this important? Is that we prevent impunity that happens already in status quo. If opposition doesn't show how they are going to resolve that, they fail. It will also ensure accountability for powerful elites that is already existing in status quo. Why is this argument mutually exclusive? Is that in our own world, opposition rely on the flawed states and all of those things, but we bring a better policy, a better option that will be able to solve this issue that is on ground. Third argument is that a supernatural regime increases deterrence and then recovering of stolen wealth. Notice that when these supernatural regimes or supernatural authorities are existing, there will be better deterrence on the crimes that are existing in status quo. We're proud to propose.
Good day, panel. My name is Pamza Debra, the first speaker from Afebala University. Opposing the motion, this House would establish a binding global enforcement regime with supernatural authority to investigate and prosecute economic and financial crimes. Panel, the proposition today proposes a global financial powers like a supernatural Leviathan, which is actually an unelected body with the power to bypass national borders, seize domestic assets, and prosecute citizens of national nations with the dream of ending financial crime, which is noble. Panel, this mechanism proposed is a dangerous overreach that threatens to actually destabilize the very global order it is seeking to protect and sustain, which is counterproductive to the entire agenda for the day. Which leads me to my first point. Panel, it erodes the concept of national sovereignty and democratic accountability. We need to understand that this supernatural enforcement authority is an unelected body that sits above the laws of all nations. And panel, we need to understand that one of the core principles and concepts of a nation is sovereignty. A nation is meant to have their own domestic powers. So in a democratic elected system where the power to prosecute and investigate economic and financial crimes are not granted to the people and their government, but rather taken to a supernatural authority. When you hand over the power to this supernatural authority, you are basically removing the concept of the governed, which is eroding the concept of sovereignty. And also, if a global prosecutor investigates a national strategic sector, like let's say the oil sector, for example, against the will of that nation's own parliament, you no longer a call to action, but now it is a violation of their rights, a violation of their national independence. Panel, the second thing I'm going to talk about is the weaponization of financial justice. The history of international institutions basically does the north-south divide. This is why we have a lot of institutional current frameworks like the International Criminal Court of Justice always facing criticism that these guys are leaving the big guys at the top, most likely the Western nations, and always trying to prosecute and criminalize lower nations or nations that they probably don't see as allies. So already we need to understand that institutional frameworks are corrupt in and of themselves. So now it becomes a structural risk because this supernatural authority will be used as a political tool by developed nations to try and discipline and bully developing nations, which is still counterproductive to the world order. Why? Because also, I'm going to talk about the judicial incompatibility and local context. Panel, we need to understand that financial crimes varies and they operate in different concepts across different nations. So a global regime would basically inevitably impose a one-size-fits-all legal framework. Now, what is considered the legitimate informal trade work in Nigeria might be considered a form of AML and it can be considered a form of money laundering pattern in another nation. So when this supernatural authority sits on that case, it then becomes forcing diverse national systems into a single global supernatural authority, which would criminalize millions of legitimate and small-scale entrepreneurs in domestic nations. The panel, there's also a centralized point of failure risk. By creating one single supernatural authority to actually investigate and prosecute economic and financial crimes, you create a massive target for corruption and hacking. In an hypothetical situation where that framework, the supernatural authority, becomes compromised and then there are now issues of corruption and hacking, we can now see that it breaks down the entire structure. Because when corruption happens from the top and the entire system is now compromised, it's going to break down everything. So every focus and every concept that they're actually fighting for becomes practically impossible to be actualized. Now, panel, this thing could actually be by political lobbying by developed nations, which I've already talked about in the foremost part of my speech, or even cyber attacks, because most of these things will be digitized. So the integrity of the entire global supernatural authority collapses. And also, concentrating total power into one supernatural authority creates a God complex within that institution. So without a higher power to actually checkmate the actions of that nation, it also collapses. Why? Because there's no checks and balances. At least nations still answer to superior organizations or organizations which they have signed treaties and agreements with. But we need to understand that this unelected supernatural authority answers to no one. So again, it erodes the concept of checks and balances. Panel, my final point. There is a displacement of institutional growth. True development comes from the country building its own policies and strengthening their own judicial frameworks. By handing the heavy lifting of prosecution to a global body, we remove the incentive for developing nations to actually invest in their own domestic frameworks. And that way, if a country knows that at the end of the day, supernatural authority will handle the bid case, it basically underfunds their own domestic financial intelligence unit, which doesn't strengthen institutional frameworks, but rather collapses it. Thank you.
So I'll begin. Right. 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. This House would establish a binding global enforcement regime with supranational national authority to investigate and prosecute economic and financial crimes. And we are doing this on the basis that we have identified and have seen various institutional and structural loopholes. All protocols duly observed, panel. We are going to be projecting our argument on 3 major points. 1, that there is a fundamental defect in the already existing structures. 2, would show you how a supernatural regime uniquely protects developing countries. And then 3, would also show you how this supernatural regime is also currently being accepted. Now, on to our main point. Panel, economic and financial crimes today are now global. They are borderless. They are sophisticated. And so we live in a world where criminal actions, financial actions, can be completed in mere seconds, and yet enforcement takes years. So that's why we see asset recoveries take a long time. Abacha loot is currently being recovered, even though these loots were carried out in the 20th century. This really shows you how slow enforcement is in the 21st century. So while law enforcement is delayed, jurisdictional conflicts apply and political interference applies. Criminals gone with their actions. So we think this is the major reason that we need a supernatural enforcement agency. So our case is simple, panel. Our case seems simple. This motion, first of all, is not about removing sovereignty from a particular state. It's not about taking away power from a state to prosecute or to identify or to investigate financial crimes. It is to make sure that financial institutions can still be trusted. Remember, we live in a world where FATF guidelines primarily look at the level of trust that you're able to build in your transactions between a state and another state. And so this is why a state where FATF guidelines mark it as great, right? Other their relationships, transactional relationships, reduce in the meantime. So, panel, the status quo is currently insufficient to handle the amount of crimes currently going on. There are delays in extradition where there are crimes committed in a particular state in another state. We see refusal to cooperate for various political reasons. This is quite a big issue. So where we leave enforcement to domestic authorities, this sort of thing can happen. Now, we also see that many countries, many territories have become safe havens for illicit activities, and which is why I can feel very confident to lock some of my stolen assets in a Switzerland bank, because I'm quite sure that the banking laws there would stop them from releasing this money to the domestic authority that owns this. And so we see that even though there are laws, there are FATF guidelines, these things are generally currently voluntary. And we see that countries can, yes, we see that there are lots of defects to these kind of things. And this is why we think that establishing a supernatural authority is very, very necessary. Now, panel, on to our second point, we'll show you that supernatural regime uniquely protects developing communities. Panel, we first want to establish that supernatural enforcement regimes are not exclusive. It's not a new thing. We are currently enjoying benefits of this. So when we talk of the ICC, the Interpol, these are enforcement agencies with supernatural authority. So it's not really that big of a deal. A question, panel. If we would allow other crimes to have supernatural enforcement, then why shouldn't we implement this for financial crimes? That's a question we have to leave there. Now, on to why it uniquely affects developing countries like Venezuela, Nigeria, and Cuba. We see that financial crimes actually
affect developing countries more than they affect developed countries. Why? This is because these countries are more at risk. They are more at risk to instability that is caused by massive movement of funds. So that's why if a certain amount suddenly leaves the Nigerian economy, we see that the naira suddenly shakes for a few minutes, a few days, not minutes, sorry. And then the CBN then has to begin putting up new guidelines to buck this up. And so we think that establishing supernatural authority would not stop these countries from enforcing these laws. However, it leaves a scenario where these developing countries have confidence in the fact that economies cannot easily be shaken, and even though people are caught, they can be easily, even though people commit these financial crimes, they can be easily brought to the book, and then confidence in the economy is restored. And so we're looking at a situation. We're looking at a situation panel where these supernatural authorities are able to independently investigate, prosecute offenders, and coordinate asset tracking. With this, very happy to propose. Thank you.
Good day, panel. I am Temiloluwa David Agumbiade from the opposition. Firstly, panel, I want to address the fundamental claim that was made by the proposition, saying that financial crimes are global, complex, and difficult to tackle. Yes, we agree. But what I do not agree on is the creation of a supernatural authority with overriding powers. Panel, we cannot assume that putting more power at a global level automatically leads to more justice. If we take a look at existing international institutions like the International Criminal Court, we can see that they struggle with enforcement and legitimacy. Panel, you can look at the case of the African Union versus the ICC, where multiple African countries threatened to withdraw from the ICC, and even in 2017, we saw the exit of Burundi. Panel, it is also important to understand that the United States currently is not part of the ICC. They even went ahead in 2002 to pass an American Service Members Protection Act and sued or, instituted actions against the ICC. Panel, if the United States or countries can bring up actions against the ICC, what is the benefit of the ICC? My panel, what changes when you bring in another supernatural or supranational authority? You only shift a problem from one space to another space. My lord, if you make a flawed system more powerful, it does not increase the accountability of the system. Panel, I move forward to my second point, and I'm going to be speaking on the ineffectiveness of this new proposition and the practical breakdown. Panel, it is very important to note that we can deal with the practicality of this proposal. First of all, we look at how does this body enforce its decisions. Will it arrest the suspects without a state consent? Will it override national courts? Will it deploy forces against the borders? It's also imperative to look at cases in the past. In 2015, a similar body, which is the ICC, had a significant failure in the enforcement of the arrest of Omar al-Bashir, also in the arrest of Umuru Kentia Atta and William Puto of Kenya. Panel, if the ICC can fail in these responsibilities, then what else are we giving to this supernatural authority that we are creating? Finally, panel, I would do myself, the panel, and the audience a disservice by coming here to complain without preferring solutions. The first solution I'm going to prefer is that instead of creating another, body that would go on with the issues and the problems of the ICC, I prefer that we expand the Egmont Group. The Egmont Group is a secure network for financial institutions and countries or governments to discuss with each other and tackle financial problems or criminals from one country to another. We should expand the Egmont Group and make it proper for countries to be able to communicate with each other when a financial problem comes up. Secondly, I would prefer that we invest in the Financial Action Task Force, and finally, that we invest in the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. Panel, it is very important to empower also local judges with all that is needed to track Bitcoin or offshore accounts in order to put an end to these financial problems. Panel, you cannot stop problems in a village by bringing about 5,000 soldiers from abroad or other institutions. It is safer and more effective to equip the local authorities that know the ins and outs of that village to help stop or solve these problems. Finally, panel, it is clear as the waters of the Maldives that these solutions that have been preferred, the creation of a multinational, it is clear, panel, that the creation of a multinational, it is clear that the creation of a multinational investigative or supernatural authority for investigating and prosecuting economic and financial crimes would not yield or produce any positive impact on the problem that we're trying to solve. Thank you.
That they do not launder money or engage in financial crimes. And panel, we need to understand that I'm not saying that it does not exist currently in status quo, but that is basically an overgeneralization. Elites are also persecuted in developed nations and even in underdeveloped nations. The problem is not impossibility, the problem is inconsistency. That is why my partner throughout his speech keeps on saying things like strengthening existing frameworks. Panel, if elites can influence national systems, they can definitely influence a supernatural authority. That is why during my speech, I already told you that these big guys are going to discipline and bully developing nations. Panel, other things they tell you is that they already have supernatural authorities like the ICC that are currently existing, so this same new authority can fly. But panel, I tell you that these bodies are already compromised, and when the supernatural authority for investigating and prosecuting economic and financial crimes becomes compromised again, it's going to lead to a collapse and breakdown of the entire system. Why? Because when the head is cut off, the body cannot function. And panel, we need to understand that all we need to do is to strengthen the existing framework, because what we have is not a problem of impossibility. What we have is a problem of inconsistency and poor facilitation and execution. We can strengthen frameworks like the Economic, Financial and Crime Commission. We can strengthen frameworks like the Nigerian Revenue Service. We can strengthen frameworks like even the ICPC that engaged in the plenary session today. These are things we need to do. We do not need to create a new God complex supernatural authority. All we need to do is to strengthen existing frameworks. Thank you.
Please, round of applause once more. Thank you. Okay, for the third place, we are having Veritas University speak on a motion which has already been read out. Can we have the Veritas University students come forward, please? Please, round of applause as they come. Thank you. So we'll have 3 minutes for each speaker. And without wasting time, we'll just welcome the first speaker from Proposition. Please, round of applause as she comes.
Good day, everyone. I'm the first speaker from the proposing side and the only speaker, actually. The motion for this debate reads, this House believes that the concept of economic and financial crime in international law is fundamentally shaped by the interests of dominant states and should therefore be rejected as a neutral basis for global regulation. So my side of the debate supports this motion, and it says that we should reject neutral basis for global regulations in terms of economic and financial crimes. And I begin. I'm going to start my speech by first framing the topic itself, which is this. There's a particular cruelty in beasts judged by rules we were never consulted about, prosecuted under the standard you did not negotiate, and blacklisted by institutions your grandfather's grandfather never sat at the table to build. In February 2023, Nigeria, which is Africa's greatest economy, was placed under the FATF Task Force Grey List. These economic consequences brought about very immediate and severe consequences in the whole economy in Nigeria. And I have 2 points, and I'm going to begin with the first one. First, disproportionate harm to developing nations. And when we talk about developing nations, we're talking about the third world countries like Nigeria and most countries in Africa. Compliance imposes heavy cost on poorer countries like Nigeria, diverting funds from development, health, and education, while major financial centers face lighter scrutiny. Overcompliance leads to financial exclusion of legitimate businesses, NGO, and remitters, deepening inequalities under the guise of integrity. Panel, I need you to understand that, but what might be an economic crime, or what might be the standard for an economic crime in the US might not be the same with Nigeria, right? If we are to follow the standard that the G7 members have put on us to follow, it means that we are not prioritizing what we ourselves are suffering. We are trying to live up to their standard of what they put and as people say, one moment. Okay. Now, the second point is the enforcement is weapon fashioned against the weak, while the powerful operate freely. The primary architects of the global anti-money laundering system are also its greatest violators. The US and UK have constructed sophisticated systems for moving dirty money while buying developing nations to clean houses. Meanwhile, when developing nations like Nigeria are placed on the FATF grey list, loans become prohibitively expensive, while they are forced to spend millions enacting complex laws to trace very small transactions. The same conduct, moving money to avoid scrutiny, is sophisticated financial planning in London. It's also called money laundering in Nigeria. Why we reject this? Pretending this concept is neutral only legitimizes neo-colonial control through finance rather than overt force. Real harms from crime exist. My house believes that yes, real harms from crime exist. But the current international framework cannot be trusted as an impartial global standard. It's primarily served dominant state standard rather than Nigeria itself. The impact of this is we lose investment, it's harder for us to get loan, and we have misplaced priority in actually prioritizing the financial crime we have in Nigeria rather than focusing on the US standard for international crime. Thank you.
There wouldn't be a universal body. Different countries will simply make different laws based off on how they feel their own country is. At the end of the day, it simply means that criminals would only go to those countries that have lesser laws and will put their money there. At the end of the day, the crime keeps on happening. The solution, like I've already mentioned, is reshaping and reform. International Law Conference brought us all of us here today because they understand that there is a problem, and that is why they were bringing professionals, lecturers, teachers from all over the world, all over Africa who understand these things, for us to be able to have discussions about it, for us to be able to understand and be able to reshape this thing. The solution is for us to bring about reforms, bring about reshaping, because there is truly no law, no policy, no agency that is 100% neutral or 100% independent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll have the judges give, before we go for announcement of the results, we'll have the judges give general remarks as to the debate and, any other feedback.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Before I make my comment, I would like to say a big well done to the debaters today. Your points were well made, well canvassed, well researched, and largely well delivered. Yeah, I think you did well on the average. Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to align with what Uzoma said. and just to commend the debaters. I'm really impressed with the confidence that you exude, and also your appearance. Just keep it up. It will help you go a long way. And there is this general belief that when you are well dressed and you know that you're well dressed, it sort of boosts your confidence when you're walking into a room filled with experts or high level policymakers and so on and so forth. I'm also, one other thing I'm really impressed with is how you manage your time. It's very, very important. Imagine being in front of participants or audience, and you're making a presentation, you're flowing, you're engaging, and then they start nudging you to stop, stop, stop. You will become disoriented, and sometimes you may end up bungling everything. So you need something, time management is a skill that you really need to acquire, and I can see that you're on the right path in that respect. So I just want to commend you and also encourage you to keep it up. Thank you.
Sorry, yes, there's just one point that I noted that I set out with the highlights. I can't remember which of the speakers used the term third world countries. Nobody says that anymore. We're in the era of political correctness, and what we used to call third world countries are now referred to as developing countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. There's nothing much to say. I align myself with what the other judges have said. Both teams, as well as the third team as well that debated amongst themselves, did very well. You were very articulate, you were very confident, you were able to pass your points across. So you carried your audience along, you carried judges along, we understood what you were trying to say, and it's a very important skill, and it's good that you have it. You were also able to manage your time well. So irrespective of whoever eventually wins the competition, you're all winners because you've gotten to this stage, and you've done very well. Well done.
So finally, I'll just say thank you to all the teams that participated. It was a very engaging debate. The arguments were well put out, and we really, really enjoyed it. I mean, we just had like a final remark after the debate that it was an engaging debate. It wasn't lopsided. And I must say that at every point in time, debate calls for critical thinking, evaluation. You ask yourself, why is something true and why is something important? You must always remind yourself why something is true and why something is important, because there are instances where you might make arguments that are actually true, but they might not be important in the grand scheme of considerations or in the grand scheme of things. So those are the key things that we always have to remind ourselves in debating. But very well put out. The oratory was quite solid, and I really appreciate each and every one of you for bringing in your A game to this. Please, a round of applause for all these speakers.
So please, a round of applause for the participants again, please. And while the debate was going on, we had the president of the ILA walking, and I think it's protocol that we properly acknowledge him. So please, with a round of applause, let us welcome Professor Damilala Olawi, SAN. Thank you very much for always gracing and supporting us, sir. So, Prof, sir, we did something spectacular this year, and I thought to inform you because at the end of the day, they are my committee members. And if there's any reason why every one of them should get accolades, I think I should mention it. Normally, we will give them time to prepare. But faith tested their capacity today. Yes. So the person who sends them topic, maybe due to this WhatsApp quality that now allows you to edit a message, sent them their sides, and edited the message after. And none of them went back to read the message. So they both came prepared for the same side. And they were given topic, and they were just given 10 minutes to prepare for it. And please, a round of applause for them again. They all delivered exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. And sir, every one of them prepared within 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Please, a round of applause for them again. Please, a round of applause. Yes. So while we are waiting for the results to be ready, I will just engage everyone a bit. And well done to Afe Babalola University. I don't know. Well done to your school, and well done to Veritas University. Everybody did. Ebonyi State University, yes. Okay, my bad. Well done to Ebonyi State University. It does not influence what's going to come.
The dinner. So we'll take a group photo with, perhaps we'll start with the winner. Yes. So are we ready? Camera. Number one, yes, Afe Babalola University, step forward.
Okay, I want you to give a round of applause to yourselves. You are not, that is not a round of applause. Good. I'm sure you do not understand what it means to do competition of this kind of magnitude. When you go to your school, you read it in national dailies. Afa Babalola won the prize award. You know what that is? You don't know. Then you hear Veritas got so award, and you also hear that Ebonyi State University. So you blow your trumpet. All right? Can you blow your trumpet? No, you didn't blow your trumpet. Can you blow your trumpet? Okay, let's do it this way. Everybody, which one are we doing? Are we doing Pararana or which one? Is it Bozak, or you know you poor are the Gen Z, so you have to tell me the one that is during our time is Boza. So which one do you prefer? Okay. All right. What? Like this. But it doesn't make noise. I want sound. I need sound. All right? So if you do like this. Okay. So 1, 2, go. Congratulations. To be frank with you, I do not understand what that means. And I don't want to ask my daughter when I get home, because she will start laughing at me. Daddy, you have come again. So congratulations on behalf of the president. All right. Okay. On behalf of the president of the International Law Association, Professor Damilola Olaoye, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, the vice president of the International Law Association, can I have your attention, please? The vice president of the International Law Association, Oludayo Olorunfemi, and other executive council members of the ILA, want to say thank you so much for taking out time to participate at this night conference of the International Law Association. I want to stand on the existing protocols that have been taking place since 3 days ago. Most especially, we want to thank the panelists, the speakers, and particularly those who have participated in today's debate. I also want to thank the analysts, those who took time to analyze the debate of the erudite students. We want to thank you so much. We are so grateful for the time you have taken to be here. This is just the beginning. It's going to be, of course, you know, it's a yearly ritual for the ILA to do this. The conference comes to an end. And it's not coming to an end without a memory. You all have acquired knowledge on international law relating to the topic of the conference, mitigating economic and financial crime, risk in shifting global order, the role of international law. You have seen different panelists. You have listened to speakers who are widely traveled and knowledgeable on international law. What do you do with this knowledge? You take it back to your various places of work, your schools, and wherever you are located. For the students, I encourage you to write articles. Don't just go back and sit at home. You have to develop yourself. You have to start building your CV. That is what international law is all about. Development of international law. You need to develop yourself. Go back and write articles. The ILA has partnership with several institutions. Institutions like the prestigious Afe Babalola University. There are institutes that we have affiliation with. Your articles can be published under that platform. So you have to key into this opportunity and continue to grow yourself. We want to thank you so much for the time you have created. And I pray to the Almighty God that as you go home, all of you arrive home safely. You have come here with your 2 legs. You will go home with your 2 legs. You have left your parents behind, your colleagues, your co-students and colleagues at work. You all meet them at home in good health. At this point, the conference, on the authority conferred on me by the president, the conference officially comes to an end. But ILA is an international organization. It doesn't just come to an end just that way. It's going to come to an end with a sumptuous meal. Please, the lunch is ready. If you have eaten so much in the morning, I'm sorry, you are going to miss a lot. But if you have laxative that you can take so that you can have more space, please proceed. The lunch is ready. I know. Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. So the lunch is ready. So you proceed to the lunch section. No longer upstairs, it's downstairs. So you won't have to stress yourself. So when you finish eating, you lazy around a little. Wait for the president dinner. So that when you go home, the memory will live with you for a long time. Now, we have not presented the awards and the categories that each schools have won. It is reserved for the dinner. So it will be done before the glaring eyes of more participants who are also attending the workshop. So you'll be part of it, you receive that. There is also a good news. Good news, clap for yourself. You have a donation of 50,000 naira. One of the distinguished members of the International Law Association listened to your presentations. He was overwhelmed because during their time, they do not have brilliant people like you. I'm not lying. So it means that our prayer is that our children should be better than us. I'm not trying to derogate or play down on him. So if we say that we are more brilliant than you, that means there is a problem. So that is why I said that during their time, they do not have brilliant students like this. And you are just holding your hands. So it means that we are proud of you. Every day, in short, of course, parents of these days, we know that sometimes when our children will ask us some questions, you say, I'm very busy, I'm very busy. You just take your time, go to Google, research about it, and explain. Because the children of these days are firebrand. So we believe that those firebrand will lead you to greatness. He has given you 50,000 naira. His name is Okpara Veru Ejiro Bar. Okay. All right. So I've taken the hints. So you have an addition. So the executive council member will make a decision on how this money will be shared among you people. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. I got the information they gave to me is what I have. So congratulations. So please now let's proceed for lunch. Thank you so much and God bless you.